had our first earthquake was a 7.1, and it was based not far from Christchurch on the 4th of September 2010, 4 something in the morning, and it was pretty terrifying, but we had no fatalities. We were very, very fortunate, and we considered ourselves pretty lucky, and we were quite smug because it wasn't long after Haiti. Didn't we do well? We had an aftershock on the 22nd of February the following year, so a few months later. That was a 6.3, and that happened at lunchtime. So it was quite a different story than everybody being in bed. And we lost many of the fronts of our buildings, many of the facades, unreinforced concrete, while people were busy in town. So we had some fatalities around pedestrians, people in cars, people on buses. We also lost people due to rockfall, and most of our fatalities occurred with two buildings, reasonably modern buildings. The earliest was built in 1970 something, that failed due to catastrophic building failure. So that's where the majority of our deaths in Christchurch occurred. Probably something that we didn't know anything about before that, well, scientists would have, but most average people from Christchurch didn't know that earthquakes come with liquefaction. So liquefaction is what So what happens when the ground shakes is the water sort of liquefies, and the water in the soil liquefies and comes to the surface, and it looks like, and I think that's what it was, a broken pipe. It just gushes. It's like a little geyser. And as a result of that, you end up with pockets of air and slumping of land. And so we had damage from both shaking, but most of the damage in many houses was caused by liquefaction, altering and damaging the land on which buildings were set. So every time we had a large aftershock, we had 14,000 aftershocks. We've got 14,000 aftershocks in the period of the next couple of years. We're still getting them, but not nearly as frequently any longer. So maybe once a month now. But they would be day, night, all over the shop. And if they were big enough, then we'd get liquefaction again. So we'd have, the first time we had students that were just incredible, turned up, the Student Volunteer Army. We had farmers, the Farmy Army turned up, all came into town and helped clear liquefaction, because it dries into silt. So it dries into quite dry silt. It's not good for lungs either, but it dries in driveways, under your house, in your garden, on the road. So we had people clearing liquefaction, which went really well the first time. Second time, a lot of people signed up. It was a pretty good experience the first time. Third time, not so many people turning up to clear liquefaction out of your yard. Fourth time, you're pretty much on your own. So for many people, that was hard going, because that happened over a period of about 18 months, the ongoing liquefaction. We also had the land slumped in many places, in the majority of our city, and it rose in a couple of other places in the city, which left some homes vulnerable to flooding that had never been vulnerable to flooding before. So they've been impacted multiple times since the earthquake was flooding as well. And we had 2 winters in a row. I know this sounds very doom and gloom, I'm very conscious of it. We had 2 winters in a row where we had quite bad snowstorms, and people's homes weren't very easy to heat because they weren't weatherproof, I suppose, or airtight. Yeah, airtight, thank you. So, it was a challenging few years for people, and these are kind of our primary stressors. And I'm not sure of your experience, but many people in Christchurch will tell you what's been hardest hasn't been the primary stressors, it's been the secondary stressors. So is that a term you're all familiar with? It's the stuff that comes after, So many people will tell you the disaster is not the problem. So for many people it's been the insurance process. We've got multiple insurers that we need to, so we're one of the few countries in the world that have earthquake insurance. So when we pay our insurance bill, part of it goes to another organisation called the Earthquake Commission. So we're juggling the Earthquake Commission portion of our repairs with our private insurer portion of our repairs. They have different assessors that come out that may not agree, and that you're managing multiple repairs and multiple processes. And it's a bit challenging. So just to give you a bit of an idea, we have a population between 300,000 and 400,000, and 100,000 of our homes were damaged. So that's around 90-something% of our housing stock. 8,000 homes lost. So we had zoning. So you were either allowed to rebuild your home as it was, or repair your home as it was, because it wasn't deemed likely that your land was going to be damaged again in a future earthquake, or you were unable to rebuild and you had your land bought from you, or you were able to, so you've got green and red, and then there's another category, orange, which then had further categories within it that said you can rebuild provided you did some work on your foundations or your land or your geotech stuff. So what I understand here, some of the rebuild or repair process, there's some requirements about materials that you use, yeah, that kind of process. We're about 50% of the way through, nearly 5 years on, 50% of the way through our repairs of homes. We're 50% of the way through repairing our roads and horizontal infrastructure. The central business district, seen a couple of buildings go up just recently, but we're still actually demolishing. So we're more in deconstruction mode than we are reconstruction mode. Just to give a bit of an idea as to where we're at. So things are still pretty challenging in Christchurch. So in terms of the secondary stresses, we've got the insurance, we've got managing your rebuild repairs, or your rebuild and repair processes. So there's a very different power dynamic between a client or a resident and the people doing the repairs to what you would normally see in a building process. So we're not necessarily the ones that we don't put a bill. So, and people have, 5, 10, 15 years worth of work lined up. So there's certainly not the motivation, and there are some very reputable and fantastic repair people out there, but you don't necessarily get the choice. So in terms of, we've had some of our paintwork, for example, painted brown things, and we've had curtains installed that finished here, and so just, people not showing the same pride and treating your home the way that they might otherwise. So some of those processes have been challenging for people. Other ones are that school zones, schools have changed. So maybe 2 years after the earthquakes, because of the population movement, and because of damaged school buildings, there were decisions made to close some schools and to merge others. That was challenging for many people in the community because it was one of the things that had been constant in their kids' lives, their source of routine. And it's also a huge source of support for many people in their community. So that was quite difficult for many people in Christchurch. Talked about the roads. The roads are pretty hellish to get around. Getting out of your driveway, depending on whether you've got roadworks in your street, and getting to meetings, between meetings, getting your kids to school. It's all become a lot more difficult in terms of roadworks and traffic than ever before. And this is one story that I tell, and forgive me for those that have heard this before, but in Manchester, Hewlett-Packard did a study that measured the stress levels of those people driving in peak hour traffic, and found that it was equivalent to riot police or to jet fighter pilots. And people in Christchurch quite like hearing that, because we've turned up meetings pretty frazzled and pretty cranky, and we're kind of known for being very conservative but also very friendly type people. And now we're probably known for being those cantankerous contemporaries. So it really has impacted on how we interact. So I talked about over 14,000 aftershocks and how you wouldn't get permission to put a rat through that in the lab. If you were talking about multiple aftershocks, middle of the night, middle of the day, when your kids are with you in the supermarket, when they're separated from you at school, and they're at various different places, when you're in movie theatres or car parks, the unpredictability of it, and sleep deprivation and the hypervigilance that, in terms of many people, is very, very challenging. So it does impact the population, I guess. Very normal responses. Lots of jumping when buses go past and the ground rumbles a little bit, or the noise that sounds like aftershocks. And in terms of our mental health clinicians, we're very much early on seeing a lot of anxiety-related needs in terms of the pointy end of the pyramid, where it's probably all aware of the group that we've got here. Some people will need some more support, most people won't. But those that did need more support was around anxiety related stuff primarily early on, and now much more to do with being a bit stuck in the anger process with the repairs and rebuild and lack of control. So that's kind of where we're seeing those things headed. We've talked about multiple hazards, we've talked about secondary stressors.
How many people, so the population is 300,000, how many people left?
That was very hard to track. So we had, and it changed over time, so we had, I know, several people, so anecdotal, I can't give you stats, but we did have a chunk of people who left early on, and people that left over time as the first one occurred, and then the second one, the liquefaction, and then impact on people. There have been some challenges for some of those that have left, for others right decision, and others have said that they found it very difficult being away from people who understood it and got it. We've had a huge influx of people come in for the rebuild, so it's very hard to track population-wise in terms of shifting population. People have moved 3 or 4 times, even with the earthquake repair processes. I know we had quite a few that headed across to Australia, so we had initial loss of jobs, not as many as could have been predicted. Most of our commercial sectors did keep running in very creative ways, but our primary business sector kept going. But we did have many people lose jobs that come to Australia. People probably heading back now, I would say, with things changing a little bit economically.
So just with the aftershocks, like what's the frequency and intensity of it? A couple times a day, does it work out?
Well, now it's probably only once a month. But we were having multiple a day. So, and it depended very much where you lived as to how you experienced them too. There were 2 active faults that were going. So the fault that ruptured in September was not a fault that we knew we had. So we weren't prepared for an earthquake in Canterbury. We were kind of considered one of the safest places in New Zealand. And then that strain on another fault which caused the aftershock. And then you would end up with these 2 sort of epicenters playing off each other. And you could kind of tell, most Cantabrians can tell you, oh, it's that fault, you know, about a 4 or about a 6 or whatever. We're pretty good at
Become experts in things you never thought you'd be an expert in. Look at the clouds now. Don't need fires you need.
Interesting. Yeah, so absolutely we end up with a whole lot of amateur geologists.
Yeah.
It's funny too because the Richter scale is actually logarithmic.
Yes.
So a 6 is 10 times more than a 5.
And a 5, yeah.
So you can, so there's 5 difference between 4 and 6 and 6 and 7.
It's not like a low scale. Maybe it is. Maybe we should teach the kids it is.
So we talk a lot about altered landscapes. You come to Christchurch and you can't escape the fact that